The Luwo are several ethnically and linguistically related Nilotic ethnic groups in Africa that inhabit an area ranging from South Sudan and Ethiopia, through northern Uganda and eastern Congo, into western Kenya, and the Mara region of Tanzania. The Luwo languages belong to the Nilotic group and as such form part of the larger Eastern Sudanic family. Within the Nilotic languages, the Luwo together with the Dinka and Nuer form the Western Nilotic branch. Groups within the Luwo nation include the Shilluk, Anuak, Acholi, Alur, Padhola, Joluo, or Luwo. The Joluo and the language Dholuo are also known as the Luwo proper, being eponymous of the larger group. The level of historical separation between these groups is estimated at about 8 centuries. Dispersion from the Nilotic homeland in South Sudan was presumably triggered by the turmoils of the Muslim conquest of Sudan. The migration of individual groups over the last few centuries can to some extent be traced in the respective groups' oral history. Origins in South Sudan. The Luwo are part of the Nilotic group of people. The Nilot had separated from the other members of the East Sudanic family by about the 3rd millennium BC. Within Nilotic, Luwo forms part of the Western group. The Luwo languages forms one branch of this Western Nilotic group, the other being Dinka and Nuer. The separation of the Luwo group from Dinka and Nuer presumably took place in South Sudan at some point in the 1st millennium AD. Within Luwo, a northern and a southern group is distinguished. Luwo proper, or Dholuo, is part of the Southern Luwo group. Northern Luwo is mostly spoken in South Sudan, while Southern Luwo groups migrated south from the Bahr el-Ghazal area in the early centuries of the 2nd millennium AD. This migration was triggered by the medieval Arab-Muslim conquest of Sudan. A further division within the Northern Luwo is recorded in a widespread tradition in Luwo oral history. The foundational figure of the Shilluk nation was a chief named Nyikangard, dated to about the mid-15th century. After a quarrel with his brother, he moved northward along the Nile and established a feudal society. The Pari people descend from the group that rejected Congo, Ethiopia. The Anuak are a Luwo people whose villages are scattered along the banks and rivers of the southwestern area of Ethiopia, with others living directly across the border in South Sudan. The name of this people is also spelled Anuak, Agnik, and Eniwa. The Anuak of South Sudan live in a grassy region that is flat and virtually treeless. During the rainy season, this area floods, so that much of it becomes swampland with various channels of deep water running through it. The Anuak who live in the lowlands of Gambela are distinguished by the color of the skin and are considered to be black Africans. The Ethiopian peoples of the highlands are of different ethnicities, and identify by lighter skin color. The Anuak have accused the current Ethiopian government and dominant highlands people of committing genocide against them. The government's oppression has affected the Anuak's access to education, healthcare and other basic services, as well as limiting opportunities for development of the area. The Acholi, another Luwo people in South Sudan, occupy what is now called Magwi County in eastern Equatorial State. They border the Uganda Acholi of northern Uganda. The South Sudan Acholi numbered about 10,000 on the 2008 population census. Uganda, around 1,500, a small group of Luwo known as the Baito Luwo, led by Chief Lobongo, encountered Bantu-speaking peoples living in the area of Banyoro. These Luwo settled with the Bantu and established the Babaito dynasty, replacing the Bachwazi dynasty of the Empire of Katara. According to Banyoro legend, Lobongo, the first in the line of the Babaito kings of Banyoro Katara, was the twin brother of Kato Kimera, the first king of Buganda. These Luwo were assimilated by the Bantu, and they lost the language and culture. Later in the 16th century, other Luo-speaking people moved to the area that encompasses present-day South Sudan, northern Uganda and northeastern Congo, forming the Alur, Jonam and Acholi. Conflicts developed when they encountered the Lango, who had been living in the area north of Lake Kyoga. The Lango also speak a Luo language. According to Dryberg, the Lango reached the eastern province of Uganda, having traveled southeasterly from the Shilluk area. The Lango language is similar to the Shilluk language. There is not consensus as to whether the Lango share ancestry with the Luo, or if they have closer ethnic kinship with their easterly Atka neighbors, with whom they share many cultural traits. Between the middle of the 16th century and the beginning of the 17th century, some Luo groups proceeded eastwards. One group called Padhola, led by a chief called Padhola, settled in Budama in eastern Uganda. They settled in a thickly forested area as a defense against attacks from Bantu neighbors who had already settled there. This self-imposed isolation helped them maintain the language and culture amidst Bantu and Atka communities. Those who went further afield were the Joka Jok and Joka Owani. The Jok Luo moved deeper into the Kavirondo Gulf, the descendants of the present-day Jo Kishumo and Jo Rachonyo amongst others. Jo Owani occupied an area near Gotramogi or Ramogi Hill in Alego of Siaya district. The Owani's ruins are still identifiable to this day at Bungu Owani near Lake Kanyabole. The other notable Luo group is the Omolo Luo, who inhabited Eugenia and Jem areas of Siaya district. The last immigrants were the Jokaga, who are related to the Omolo Luo. The leader Okiang Waljak Gur used his advanced military skill to drive away the Omia Bantu groups, who were then living in present-day Eugenia around 1750 AD. Kenya and Tanzania. Between about 1500 and 1800, other Luo groups crossed into present-day Kenya and eventually into present-day Tanzania. They inhabited the area on the banks of Lake Victoria. According to the Joluo, a warrior chief named Ramogi Ajwang led them into present-day Kenya about 500 years ago. As in Uganda, some non-Luo people in Kenya have adopted Luo languages. A majority of the Bantu Suba people in Kenya speak Dholuo as a first language and have largely been assimilated. The Luo in Kenya, who call themselves Joluo, are the fourth largest community in Kenya after the Kikuyu, Kalenjin and Lulia. In 2010, the population was estimated to be 4.1 million. In Tanzania they numbered an estimated 980,000. The Luo in Kenya and Tanzania call the language Dholuo, which is mutually intelligible with the languages of the Lango, Kumam and Padhola of Uganda, Acholi of Uganda and South Sudan and Alur of Uganda and Congo. The Luo are traditional fishermen and practice fishing as their main economic activity. Other cultural activities included wrestling for the young boys aged 13 to 18 in their age sets. The main rivals in the 18th century were the Langard, the Highland Nilots, who traditionally engaged them in fierce bloody battles, most of which emanated from the stealing of the livestock. Luwo subgroups. This includes peoples who share Luo ancestry and or speak a Luo language. Acholi, Acholi, Alur, Anuak, Blandabor, Gambella, Jopadhola, Jonam, Jumjum, Jubal, Jurchol, Kumam, Joluo, Luwo, Pari, Shilluk. Internationally notable Luo people: Adongo Agada Cham, 23rd king of the Inuit Niuda, a royal dynasty of Sudan and Ethiopia. Dr. Dio Chimbara, known transportation engineering professor at Tennessee State University in the United States of America. Iu Bagada, singer, composer and performer on the Nyati, the Nilotic lyre of Kenya. Barack Obama, President of the United States, of partial Luo descent. descent through his father, Barack Obama Sr. Barack Obama Sr., economist, Harvard University graduate, father of current U.S. President Barack Obama. Basilio Olara Okello, former senior army officer, deceased, who led the rebellion that gave Tito Okello the presidency. Betty Bigombe, a former Ugandan politician, a senior fellow at the U.S. Institute of Peace. David Peter Simon Wasuo, University of Oxford-trained zoologist and the first African deputy principal of Makerere University College and Nairobi University College. George Ramogi, musician. Grace Ogot, educationist. Henry Lukorombi, Archbishop of the Church of Uganda. Janani Luwum, a former Archbishop of the Church of Uganda. Yaramogi Oginga Odinga, independence fighter, first Vice President of independent Kenya. Johnny Odulia, a defenseman for the Chicago Blackhawks of the NHL. Joseph Kony, leader of the Lord's Resistance Army, notorious rebel group in Uganda. Kevin Okieng-Obora, African and Luwo information system expert. Dr. Lakeba Janet, author, Ackley accented orthography, ISBN 9780954932305. Lupita Nyong'o, actress and filmmaker. Matthew Lukwia, epidemiologist, died while fighting to eradicate the Ebola pandemic in northern Uganda. Okit Pibitek, poet and author of the Song of Lawino. Olara Otunu, a former Under-Secretary General of the United Nations and Special Representative for Children and Armed Conflict. Raila Amolo Odinga, second Prime Minister, the longest-serving political detainee in Kenyan history. Ramogi Ochieng Oneko, independence freedom fighter and politician. Robert Uko, Kenyan Foreign Minister, murdered in 1990. James Orangard, Senate member in Kenya and a senior counsel in Kenya. He is also known for the second liberation fight in Kenyan politics. Oburu Odinga, former Kenyan minister and member of Kenyan Senate. Rachel Omamo, Cabinet Secretary, Department of Defense. Thomas Odiambo, preeminent scientist, founder of International Center of Insect Physiology and Ecology, exceptional thinker, the visionary and influencer. Francis Okola Orieni, political editor. Thomas Risley Odiambo, University of Cambridge-trained entomologist and environmental activist, and the founder-director of ICIPE, African Academy of Sciences and RANDFORUM. Ruth Odinga, Kisumu Deputy Governor and daughter of Yaramogi Oginga Odinga. Tito Okello, former President of Uganda and Army Commander, deceased. Tom Mboya, politician, Pan-Africanist, assassinated in 1969. Yvonne Adhiambo, author. Alan Noah Imba, philanthropist. Paul Fromilla OET, activist. D. Oino Misiani, musician. Okien Kabasele, musician. Musa Juma, musician. Omondi Tony, musician. Robert Jagech, ThoughtWorks senior quality analyst.